Welcome to the Perfect 100, the podcast for BNI members who want to maximize their membership, deepen their impact, and grow their business through intentional networking. I'm your host, Tammy Zurak, a CliftonStrengths coach, longtime BNI leader, and one of the few members worldwide to maintain a perfect Power of One score. Each week, we'll explore the habits, mindsets, and everyday strategies of BNI members who are turning their membership into momentum. Hello and welcome back to the Perfect 100. I'm your host, Tammy Zurak. My guest today not only stepped in as president of his chapter in the middle of the term, but he also has recently become a chapter success coach. I want to welcome Nick Sammons to the podcast. Hey, Nick.
Hey, Tammy. How are you?
I am doing great today. It's Monday morning. It's whoever's listening, they don't know what day it is, but it's Monday morning here and we're ready to go. So, so we're going to jump right in. Tell us, how long have you been a BNI member and a chapter success coach, and what chapter and seat do you currently hold?
So I have been a BNI member for 4.5 years now. Chapter success coach just recently over about the last 6 months, and I hold the general contracting builder seat in the BNI Bartlett chapter.
Awesome. General contractor is, what's the right word I'm looking for? It's highly sought after, I think, in most of the chapters. So I'm really interested to talk to you a little bit about that. And your presence in our region is more than just you. So I want to talk to you about that as well. But we're going to start with giving us your best 45 seconds. So I'm going to hold up the timer for you. When it stops, you stop. You ready?
All right, let's do it.
Okay.
Good morning, BNI Bartlett. My name is Nick Sammons. I own TruVine Renovations, and we build kitchens, bathrooms, and home additions. But what we specialize in is a peaceful renovation experience. Now, what I am looking for today are clients who have had poor experiences with contractors in the past, who need someone to help them, guide them through the process, and is very thorough and communicates well. Those would be a good fit for me. And I know I left a little bit of time there, but we do 25 seconds in my chapter. So
Yeah, you guys. So I'm the chapter success coach for Nick's chapter. So I have heard his stuff before and know him somewhat from being, a visitor at the chapter, and we've definitely done a one-to-one and so forth. So I think it's going to be interesting. And yeah, and you guys do. So you guys have an interesting chapter in terms of time-wise. Is you went from, I think you were doing 60 seconds at the beginning when you first took over, and you cut it to 25. You went full bore extreme, trying to make up some time because you guys were running over. Is that right?
yeah, we were constantly just skipping through a lot of referrals and testimonials and a lot of the important parts of the meeting towards the end. And we just had to shave time somewhere. And as our chapter grew up to 40, even though now we're back down to 36, that's really the best place for us to save time.
Yeah, and and they say, I know when you shave time off of the commercial, so to speak, that people sometimes can get unhappy about that. But it at the end of the day, I think we always all say is, if you're counting on your commercial in the chapter meeting to get you business, then you're probably not going to do as well, because you really should be focusing on the one-to-ones, is where you share all the information. It's just kind of a nice weekly recap, right?
Yeah, exactly. And we put a slide in before that tells you how to do your 25 seconds in a very concise but clear manner. So that way you're not, you're getting the most important information to your chapter instead of maybe rambling or telling a story or something like that. So people can remember you.
Yes, that's awesome. All right, let's look at your power of one. Leslie's going to put that on the screen for us. So pretty good stuff. You are in the green with a score of 80. You are 20 points for attendance, 20 points for referrals, 20 points for one-to-ones, 20 points for CEUs, and a perfect score would be 100. So you're missing 20 points somewhere. Looks like visitors. Do you want to talk a little bit about what visitors, if there are a challenge, what that looks like for you?
Yeah, visitors can be a challenge for me. I mean, we meet with a lot of subcontractors and vendors, and we have a lot of relationships with those guys. But a lot of times, they can be 1 or 2 man crews, they're owner operators, and I've invited plenty of them before. Have even gotten people to commit, but just not show up. And so It's hard and it can especially be in the contracting industry where somebody comes into a chapter and they get so much business from it that they just can't continue to keep coming to the meetings. So making the commitment can be very difficult, especially for these owner operators that I'm typically in contact with who are the ones that are moving their business forward on a daily basis.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people have that problem, right? And especially in your world, because you're primarily probably not working with people that are, in the trades. So looking for that right person that has that perfect blend of enough support to be able to be in a chapter, or isn't gonna, we're not gonna bring them in, blow them up, and then they head out, which is we don't want either of those things. We want the right person. And I think in your own experience, and maybe we can talk a little bit about that, is tell us a little bit about how your business runs, because you're in a chapter and you have other people in other chapters. Is that right?
Yeah, so I handle all the sales and marketing for my business, and then I have a full-time project manager, Cameron, who's in the uh, Greater Memphis chapter, and then I have a part-time office administrator, Stacy, who works remote. So Cameron is in a chapter, although he is extremely busy handling the day-to-day operations of everything. It's just important to us that we get more visibility, especially as a new business, because we're only 4 years, 4 years in right now. So.
Right. Yeah. Well, so I'll turn the spotlight back on you. So if you were, because you are a chapter success coach, if you were counseling someone like you in another chapter who was in your situation, maybe they, want to grow their business, and they even maybe have somebody in another chapter, but visitors are a challenge. What advice might you give them, Nick?
I would say keep trying. There are a lot of people who think they don't need to network, especially in contracting, because they think everything is word of mouth. They go, "Oh, I've been doing this for so many years, and it's all word of mouth." And but they're frustrated that their business isn't growing. And so one of the main theories that I've had is my business isn't growing because not enough people know who I am yet. And so coming to BNI gets you around that 20, 30, 40 group of people who can know who you are on a more intimate level and can spread that out a lot faster. And we have seen that over the past 4 years, being able to grow that we have. So that's what I would recommend to someone is that you need more eyeballs on your business, and BNI is a great, really inexpensive, most of it is just a time commitment way to do that. Make it a priority like you would anything else in your business. If you're going to do something, if you're going to be a part of a chamber, part of BNI, then you need to be all in on it. Somebody who comes in who's going to, not put all of their effort into it, you're not going to get what you're hoping out of it.
Sure. Have you found an advantage having people in other chapters to growing your business? Is that, I know you said that's a struggle because obviously your person in a different chapter is busy also running the day to day. So how have I know I can think of at least two or three other people in this region that have people in multiple chapters, and they have to kind of make that time, right? So how has that been a benefit to you?
Yeah, I mean, we've gotten not only referrals from the chapters that we're in, but we've seen that expand outside of that in different things like Memphis Most. Since I'm a chapter success coach and I go to other chapters where my seat is typically open, I'll help them and I'll also give my spiel of what I do. And it creates that VCP that BNI talks about, that visibility, credibility, and then profitability. So not only do I get referrals from the two chapters we're in, but other chapters in the region as well.
Yeah, I love that. I think that it's definitely challenging to create the space to let people do this, but that it's the biggest thing from a business perspective is you have to make the time to grow. If I coach sales, and if you're not constantly putting new opportunities sort of in the top of the funnel, you're not going to have stuff coming out the bottom if all you're doing is working on the job site all day or whatever it is you do all day in your business. You've got to have more opportunities. So having something, whether it's BNI, the chamber, whatever, you've got to have some other outlet. And the wider you can spread that net, the more opportunities you're going to get to make that work. So that's awesome. Let's look at the Palms report. So I've pulled it's always defaults to 6 months, but I've added the extra couple of weeks in that are in this month. So present, you have been present or had a sub the entire time. Referrals given inside 23, referrals given outside 18. And this is, I forgot how many weeks this is. It's probably 20. I think we're about 23, 24 weeks, just for perspective. So a referral given almost every week or every week, and referrals given inside. And if you add in the outside, then it's more than that. Referrals received inside 4, referrals received outside 15. So it looks like you're given a lot and you're getting some back from your chapter, but it looks like you also have some partners outside the chapter. Is that a true story?
Yeah, absolutely. Before I became the president and moved over to BNI Bartlett, I was over at the Trusted Advisors chapter, so I have a lot of contacts over there. People in there who I trust and have business with, that I still work with. However, I do still send a lot of referrals inside our own chapter when those seats are available. So, and as far as receiving the referrals back, my return on investment in BNI is absolutely massive because our average job size is about $44,000. So the way I look at it is I really only need one of those jobs in order to make it worth it for us.
Right.
And it's really helpful too when you have these quality business professionals in these chapters, especially things like HVAC, plumbing, electric, because there's accountability with your subcontractors and other general contractors. They may agree with me that sometimes the sub pool can kind of be scary to navigate through. So
Right.
I love having the accountability of coming to my weekly meeting and seeing my subs, because that's just a little extra bug in their ear that says, hey, you need to get that thing done for me.
Nice. We do in my chapter, and I know we don't, all the chapters don't do this, but the referral reality check. So we take if you're not doing this, we take all of the referrals that were given this week and then put them into, an opportunity to grab them next week. So when the referral reality check slide comes up, we pull that out and say, okay, Nick, I see you gave a referral to Tammy, and Tammy, how is that going? It's such and such person. And I have to say, whatever has happened. And not often, sometimes we catch people where they haven't done what they're supposed to do and reach out to that person. And that's a little embarrassing, right? And it's not meant to be embarrassing, but it makes, from a visitor perspective, if you have somebody visiting your chapter, it shows that we do accountability, right? Is we care, and whether or not you do that in your chapter, I think it's a good thing because it shows that we do, in my chapter, we do track all the things, and we want people to recognize that if we're here to work together, and this is sort of like a business, we want to make sure we're following up with all of the opportunities. So you're kind of saying that in a different way, is if they're in your chapter, then they're going to see you. Then they have to, they're going to feel accountable to you, versus some that never see you and they don't necessarily have to feel that way, right?
Yeah, we do the referral reality check. We have the featured speaker do it. And what they do is we tell them, talk about a referral that you recently received that went well, or maybe one that wasn't such a great fit for you. That way the chapter can kind of gather around, because sometimes it's really hard in a 40-member chapter to sit down one to one with everybody and know them extremely well. And so you may go look at them and go, well, I don't really know how to refer this person. Maybe you've sent them something in the past and it didn't work out, but then they tell you during that referral reality check why that referral wasn't a good fit for them. And so you learn a little bit of something along the way as well.
Join the Art Academy in Memphis. Master the skills needed to create stunning, realistic oil paintings. With expert instruction, you'll refine your craft. Enroll today at artacademyofmemphis.com. Yeah, I like that. That's actually an interesting twist on that is having people tell you, because I think we've all, I've been in for 10 years. I've definitely received referrals that were not a great fit. And being able to speak to, although that might be embarrassing for the person that gave it to you if it was recent, but being able to say, this is why, this is not a great referral and here's why to prevent, I would rather say that than, get more of the wrong thing. So that's a good thing. All right. So then we've got visitors 0, which we talked about, one-to-ones 53. Thank you for closed business given 154,904. And then CEUs 1 to 121. Tell me about that. You like to you must have learners somewhere in your strengths profile that didn't show up on the top 5.
Yeah,
Tell me more.
that's the researcher, the analysis part. So I do a lot of I'm in business coaching myself, so I do a lot of sales training, and obviously for my general contractor's license, I have to have a certain number of CEUs per year. But I'm just an avid learner. I like to absorb information. I read a lot uh, because I wasn't born a business owner. I had no idea how to do any of this when I first started. I was just a good tradesman. And then you find out when you go out on your own that there's a lot more to business than being just a good tradesman. So, constantly doing coaching, absorbing information. I really like taking the CliftonStrengths test. I've taken disc profile test. Um, I've taken, there's another one with
Myers-Briggs,
numbers.
probably.
Yeah, that one of those. So just seeing different ways to view people, to increase my leadership, to better my sales, how to build systems and operations. I'm constantly doing that. And so that's where all those CEUs come from.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about your strengths in a minute, but I'm guessing learner's probably pretty high for you based on that information. And you have your top 2 talent, which we'll talk about in a minute, probably falls into that as well. But I would guess we've only done your top 5 for this, but if you unlock and do the full 34, learner's probably pretty high for you. I'm just going to say it. I also wanted to make a point you said earlier, based on how many referrals you've received. It's an important point because you said you don't need that many, right? If your average sale is fairly high, you're not selling lipstick where one is not going to pay your bills if you sell one. So you have to sell a lot of lipstick to pay your bills if you were selling lipstick, which you're not. But it's an important point because we need to ask the person in general if how is what they're getting enough, because if you're only getting a small amount but it's a high dollar amount, that might be different. But if we never ask the question, we don't know. And for the chapters that are doing the 7-month check-in, that's what that's for, is to look at these numbers and say, hey, are you receiving what you need for this to be useful? And if not, how can we help? So all good information.
Yeah,
All
when you
right.
come into BNI, you need a plan. So it's a marketing tool. So for me, my plan is if I make a marketing expense, I need to see at minimum a 10% return on investment. And, with the expense in BNI being relatively low, but a high time commitment, you have to kind of factor in what your time is worth for that. And so if you have a plan and you know what your goals are, you're much more likely to reach that goal than if you just come in and go, well, I hope people send me business. Uh, Especially if you have a low ticket item, where your average job might be $1,000, you got to figure out what that number is for you in order for it to be worth it.
Yeah, for sure. What about BNI in general has been most challenging for you?
Oh, let's see, as a member or a chapter success coach?
Sure.
Well, certainly as a chapter success coach, there are some chapters that are gung ho about growing their chapter and working together and moving forward and growing their businesses. And then there are some chapters that are happy where they're at. They're not really looking to grow or have really any input, and that hurts them to an extent. While you might have good relationships, while you might have a solid power team or core, group of 8 to 10 people, if you don't put yourself out there and continue to grow, you're going to slowly dwindle away. It's the same thing in business. If you're not growing, you're dying. So, um, I wish some of the chapters would see the value in what they're doing and that they would put in a little more effort into the accountability side of things. And they might see, their chapter expand from 18 people to 30 or 40 people. As a member, I think the hardest thing is when you first come into a chapter. There's a lot of stuff you're told you're supposed to do. You come in the chapter, people are welcoming, you're in, you're supposed to do some sort of training, and then you're kind of like, what do I do? And I think a lot of people are nervous with that first one-to-one. They're not really sure how it's going to go. They kind of expect business right off the bat too. And just coming to the meetings is not going to get you business. It's really the one to ones that matter because people want to trust you before they refer you because they're putting their name on that referral when that happens. You're wanting a warm introduction. Hey, this really influential realtor is going to recommend me to this buyer who's going to remodel their house. If they don't know you and the experience goes bad, that looks bad on the realtor. And so you really want to build those relationships as quickly as possible to make your life a lot easier when you first join.
Yeah, it's I think and since you're relatively new to the chapter success coach, I was kind of curious to hear what your observations were because I've been one for a very long time and I've also been a managing director and it's the most challenging piece for me is seeing the potential unresolved, unrealized, untapped into, all the things, is it, some of the chapters that I work with, you go into a meeting and you hear people say, I'm struggling. I need more. And the framework of BNI, that's all it is a framework. It's an opportunity to build your business through a proven system, that and it's not just you, it can just be you executing on that framework. But if the rest of the chapter isn't doing all the things that you're supposed to do, then it becomes the culture not to, right? Or you just don't even know because nobody's taught you. And that's where I think we have a lot of turnover. And I think that a lot of members look at turnover like, oh, well, it's bad for BNI because our chapters, whatever, but it's not bad for BNI. It's bad for you,
Right.
right? It's your network. Whatever is happening in the room that you meet is yours. That is your meeting. That is your network. For me, that is everything, right? Is if I don't have a good team around me, whether it's in BNI or in my business, then I can't do as well as I could if I did. So, for somebody, I have Maximizer in my top 5, and Maximizer likes to take good things and make them great. It kills me when I see a good opportunity to help, and I love helping people grow their business. When I see that opportunity unrealized because people don't, they want to, I struggle with we're not going to do it because that's what they said to do. Okay. But it's not because they said to do it. They just want you to be successful in your business. And, that's
Yeah.
kind of the whole thing is the rising tide lifts all ships. If we do the things, if anybody else told you, it's kind of like when your parents tell you when you're growing up, don't do the thing. But then, somebody else that's an adult, maybe your teacher that you love comes and tells you the same thing. You're like, that's a great idea. It's
Right.
like, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Have you felt that experience having stepped into the shoes of the chapter success coach?
Without a doubt. And, there's only so much a chapter success coach can do. We're there to support, and we don't really have any authority over anything, really. So, uh, with I think that's kind of part of it too. Is without some extra level of authority or being able to hold people accountable from our role, they take all the accountability onto themselves. And when you're trying to come in and help it, nobody likes to be told what to do, right? So, you got to be creative. You got to find a way to inspire them, take an educational moment here, talk about what's possible. And feel out the groups. So, having one to ones with people in the group, you hear a lot of things, and people like you build trust because you have credibility as a chapter success coach within those chapters. And so you hear a lot of things from people in the chapter that you may not necessarily hear if you're part of the leadership of that chapter, things that people are frustrated about. And so you know what the chapter's frustrated about. The core leadership team is kind of wondering what's going on, why things aren't going the way they hope they are. And then you have to be the one who comes in and try to bridge the gap. And so it can be a lot of effort to run a chapter. If you do it the way that BNI recommends, it can be super streamlined, super easy. That's what we've tried to do in Bartlett, because there's this big, hazy unknown of effort that is talked about when it comes time to select new leadership positions. And so if you just make that very clear, um, your chapter can run really smooth and really well. And it's the same thing in your business. I asked the question to our chapter the other day, who here has not only grown their business, but grown professionally and as a leader as well? And everybody raised their hand, because you're basically, the small network is a business, and you have to work together. You have to work with all those different kinds of personalities. You have to have a core leadership team that's strong, that communicates well. We have core values, right? Like every business should. So I just I love our chapters. I wish sometimes people would just follow the plan. But and that shows, I think that showed up in my test results as
It
well. It's
did,
like
yes.
I like structure, routines.
Yes, yes. Well, and it's funny. I forget what you said, but it's something to the effect of we have no control. Like we really don't as a success coach. And I had a meeting with one of the incoming presidents for next term recently, and I said, I have zero control over what happens. I have zero control. It isn't up to me what happens in your chapter. It's up to you what happens in your chapter. And it isn't even up to you what happens as president. It's up to everyone. So having the best plan is having a strong leadership team, because people who all see the same vision, right? Is if it could be, we could all be better if, and that sometimes means we have to leave some people behind because they don't want to. And, but that's the culture we created over time is, we don't do that here. Well, that's okay for you in your, and is it okay for you in your business? Is we don't follow up with people in our
Yeah.
business.
And
Go ahead.
it sorry, but it's like I the way I think about it in chapters is, sometimes BNI really pushes the visitor, grow your chapter, and yes, that's extremely important. Uh, but I was always taught, don't scale a turd. So you don't want to scale your business that isn't ready for that, because you're just going to have more problems as a bigger business. Same thing in your
Right.
chapter. You don't want to scale a chapter that's got a lot of problems. Let's get in, let's fix some of these things, let's build a strong chapter. Maybe we have to cut some of the fat out,
Yes.
but build a strong chapter, and then you can grow, and it'll be 10 times better.
Yeah, it's kind of a parallel to your business, right? As a general contractor, you can't, put the lipstick on the pig. You can't put the siding on a bad framework. You have to have all of the foundation pieces working well and built well and strong and all the things before you can dress up and, attract more to opportunities to your business. So very cool. What's one mistake that you've made in your business or in networking that taught you the most and that gave you a new approach?
Oh, as far as networking, I'm not naturally an extroverted person. I'm very introverted. I like to stay at home a lot. Uh, you know, Events with a lot of people and energy wear me out. So it was very difficult for me. And obviously, being a part of sales and marketing in my business, that's not a great trait to have. It's a valuable trait in other areas of the business. So I had to teach myself to be more extroverted, to not be so monotone, to change the tone of my voice. A lot of that sales training was really helpful for me to initiate conversations. And so I can kind of turn it on, turn it off. Now, does it wear me out? Absolutely. Being the president of the chapter, standing up there for an hour and a half every day, having to bring the energy first thing in the morning, that's not my cup of tea. But learning how to do that and getting more involved too. Uh, I love being a part of the leadership of the chapter. For the first couple of years, I was just kind of back on the sidelines, just kind of doing the bare minimum, trying to figure things out. But once I was able to step in front of the chapter and lead, that was a point where I was able to really build that visibility, credibility, and profitability. Because instead of just looking at me for that 45 seconds that we have every week, you're looking at me for an hour and a half. And people know what it takes to run a chapter. They know there's a lot of effort. They may not know exactly what it takes, but you really build that credibility in the chapter and that trust that comes with it. So those were probably the two things that helped me the most.
Awesome. Yeah, and it kind of gives you a new perspective, right? As if you've never been in the leadership roles, the top three ELT, it's hard to, it looks effortless to some degree when somebody's doing it well. It doesn't look effortless when somebody's doing it poorly. But it also, to your point, the visibility, credibility, profitability factor that we call in BNI BCP, it certainly helps when things go well, right? Is they can see, when the members can see a measurable difference with what's happening. Or the thing I love the most is at the end, when the visitors, we ask our visitors to stand up and say what you liked about the meeting, and they talk about the things that you're executing, right? As their you as president are the one that is sort of the ringmaster, you're orchestrating all the things to happen. You mentioned changing the time because it needed to be changed so that everything is done the way it's supposed to be. And that is almost always what visitors say. They like the feel of it, but they like, a lot of them like that it happens on time and that there's a structure. We talk about accountability in my chapter. When we put the power of one up, we talk about this is what this means is, this is accountability. We measure those things. So that matters. It's not like, the chamber's great. I'm an ambassador in the chamber, but it isn't the same. Going to a chamber event isn't the same as being in BNI because there's no accountability. You just show up at a chamber and hope for the best. And now if you know how to work it, that's a different thing. But we have that piece that is what makes it work, right? So that's cool stuff. All right, let's take a turn and talk. We've hinted to the CliftonStrengths quite a bit, so let's go ahead and show your CliftonStrengths. All right, so your number one thing is a new one for us here, is significance. You want to make a big impact. You are independent and prioritize projects based on how much influence they will have on your organization or the people around you. Number two is analytical. You search for reasons and causes. You have the ability to think about all of the factors that affect a situation. Number three is focus. You can take a direction, follow through, and make the connections necessary to stay on track. You prioritize, then act. Number four is responsibility. You take psychological ownership of what you say you will do. You are committed to stable values such as honesty and loyalty. And number five is competition. You measure your progress against the performance of others. You strive to win first place and revel in contests. So, what stood out to you the most when you got your results?
Uh, you know, I've taken so many of these tests before. They all kind of they all make sense, and in different points of my life, they change just a little bit. But I had never seen significance before as part of it. I've seen the analytical, the focus, responsibility, competitiveness, those kind of things, and uh, that's the biggest thing that stood out to me. I personally think that I'm here to build something extremely great that can give back to the community, that can, continue to employ people, to build into other businesses. And so that's really important to me. Um, and as much as I prefer to not be in the spotlight, it always feels good to me to be recognized for something that we're doing. So I don't ever actively seek I've got to be in the spotlight right here. But if I did something that people feel is truly worthy, not something that I feel was worthy and that wants to be recognized, I love that, because that's what I want to do. I'm not here to exalt myself, but just I want to make a difference, and we're doing that. A bathroom, a kitchen, and addition at a time right now. So.
Yeah, and so I have significance also. My significance is number five. And it sounds like a word, when you hear significance, it sounds like, oh, well, I want to be significant. It sounds sort of like, oh, that's not cool. But significance isn't that. It is more so what you said is, I want to make a difference in how it, and then when you roll those five things together, you said several of them is you want to give back to the community. That's a responsibility. You want to do good things. And I was reading your top 5 for me as a general contractor. I think that's amazing because it's what sets you apart. I teach branding, and wow, if you had somebody who, I think the biggest challenge that most people have with a general contractor when they go to hire somebody to make whatever changes to their home, that their biggest concern is that they're not going to follow through, that it isn't going to be what they said, that they're not going to be there for you when you need them. And pretty much all the things you have are counter to that, right? Is you're going to be significant because you want to make a difference. You want to be a different type of contractor. You want to be somebody who is responsible. Analytical, I'm imagining, plays quite a lot into what you're doing. In terms of managing all of the pieces and parts and finding the best things to work for people. I'm guessing even prior to taking a job, you've already spent a lot of time sussing out all of the right next things for the next jobs. Focus is also one that we haven't had on the podcast before, and I have focus, but my focus is number 9. Do you feel like you are, when you're doing things, you lose time? There are
Oh,
certain things you're.
absolutely. I think my best focus period is at night. It's like from 9 to 11 o'clock, and that's where I can really, if I want to get something done, I zone in. I'll be working. I'll look at the time and be like, oh my gosh, 2 hours has gone by already. So that goes with the analytical side. I'm always thinking, what data can I track? What are we forecasting? What is something, a change that we can make in our business that could be positive? And I'll play out 10 different scenarios on paper, look at them all, you know, check the data, and figure out which one is the right path to take.
Yeah, it's a blessing and a curse to some degree. Focus isn't something everybody has. In fact, a lot of people don't have focus. And when you're working together on projects, which you're managing a lot of different things all at once as a general contractor. You have all the different pieces and parts that need to get done. Focus, whether you're a general contractor or you're somebody like me, I'm a solopreneur, but when you get in the mode, I asked Nick if he loses time because time passes and you don't even realize it because you're really enjoying whatever it is that you do. When I was in photography, I used to edit for hours and I wouldn't even think twice about it. 4 hours would go by and I was like, oh, I need to come up for air because, I'm just in the zone. And that's what focus is, you want someone that can put aside the clutter and do the thing, and I struggle sometimes because I think we all do. There's so many different things that you can be doing, but focus can zero in on the one thing. And you need that person on your team that can do the one thing that gets things accomplished, right? As some people have zero focus and without it, life can be more challenging.
Yeah, I am definitely by no means a multitasker. I don't even think you can multitask. I think you can only be distracted.
Right.
So, I really like to work in the dark. I don't need, all the lights are off. My wife will come into my office and be like, what are you
What are you
doing in here?
doing?
And it's like I am zoned in, focused on what it is I'm working on. So, and it was cool to me to see that how closely these top 5 ranked with our business core values. And so our business core values are purity, respect, integrity, commitment, and excellence. And so, purity, that goes into significance of what we're doing. Respect, that could be responsibility, analytical, integrity, that's that responsibility, commitment, that's the focus, and then excellence is our competitive side. So, that was pretty cool how that lined up to me.
Yeah, I love that. Has competition, have you felt that in any, how does that play out for you in your world?
Oh yeah, I'm hyper competitive. I grew up playing sports, doing all sorts of different things, and being competitive that way. I have a big network of contractors all over the U.S. That I'm able to connect with and talk to about businesses. I know who my local competition is here and the markets that we're trying to get into. I know where they're at. I'm not satisfied until we're able to say that we're the best. Granted, I'm content with where we are, and I'm really proud of how far we've gone. But that's part of our core value of excellence is we're always trying to get better. So we want to elevate ourselves on a daily basis, both personally and professionally. We've seen that in the business. Myself last year decided to lose some weight, lost 30 pounds last year. So continuing to get better personally. Our PM, Cameron, I know he won't mind me saying this, he quit smoking when he was started working for us. So, everybody on the team is working to better themselves and be better for their families. And then in turn, that flows into the business, right? So it's exciting to see.
Yeah, well, and you said earlier, I wrote down, you said you need a plan. Everybody needs a plan for BNI, right? And you said that, and I'm sure, based on your strengths, planning is part of your your day to day. Would you say that's true?
Absolutely. It's got to be, if it's not on my calendar, it doesn't happen. And so for a lot of people, they've got this big list of things and they're like, oh, well, I didn't get anything done today. Someone who takes really good care of their calendar is going to get a lot of things done. And so I even schedule things in there like going to the gym or even family time because sometimes I can have a problem turning off work, and so I schedule that in there to know, like, hey, I need to be done with my day by this time. This is the time I'm going to spend with my family. So, I would recommend especially in BNI, just put it on your calendar. I know you're busy, but if you put it on your calendar, you won't miss it. You'll schedule around it.
Yeah, and that again is focus. That's playing out is, have a plan, work the plan, be the plan. And focus doesn't have to just be business. Focus, like you said, to schedule family time, you schedule whatever it is you want to focus on, that's what you schedule. And that is how it works for you. So I love that. And for those of you that feel like I could never, work the calendar, plan the day, all the things, find a friend who has focus who can help you. How can you see how the strengths have played out in your business as a whole?
Yeah, without a doubt. Early on, I was just like every other contractor. I'd wake up at 5 in the morning so I could go pick up material, and then I'd work from 8 to 5, and then after 5, I'd go out and do some sales calls till 7, and then I'd come back from 7 to 11 and write up proposals. And it was just this constant cycle of things. And one that was my focus. I had to have a really planned out day, and then I realized, like, on my competitive side, I'm like, there's no way I quit my normal job to work longer, harder for less money.
Right.
And that's the analytical side coming in. And so I had to learn by figuring out what other businesses were doing. I got into coaching. I started to do sales training. We're put on a belt tracker that was competitive. And so, as this is going along over the last 4 years, I've seen all of those come into play and grow our business. I mean, 10x. So,
Awesome. So if you could imagine a business owner who's never discovered their strengths, what would you say to them that why would matter to them?
there's so much that you really don't know about yourself. There's a lot of tests and different things out there like the CliftonStrengths, like a disc profile test, that can give you insight to what your strengths and weaknesses are. And in business, you really can't be everything as an owner operator. You've got some really good strengths, which is where you need to put your focus, and you've got some weaknesses where other people can help you grow your business. And so I would definitely recommend taking one of the those tests and figuring out what you're good at. And don't go online and find a free test, because yeah, it might give you a little bit of information, but you really don't know how to integrate that, or how that integrates with your business, your life, who you are, how you like to operate. And so one of those tests could be a couple $100, but could give you some really valuable insight. And we are big fans of the disc profile test. We take it every 2 years. The whole team does. It helps me as a leader figure out how they like to be led, how they like to be communicated to. It helps me as an introvert know how to speak to clients who are different than what I am. Now, I always love a client who already knows everything they want, where they all want it to go. They've got it all picked out. They want to do it. They've researched us because that's who I am. But, there are other clients who want to tell me about how their grandmother made them feel in their kitchen and how they want to recreate that experience. And if I didn't have that training, if I didn't understand the way I operate and how those types of people can operate, then it would be really hard for me to sympathize with her and give her what she's looking for. So,
Yeah, and I started my career early on taking DISC. I've taken DISC in Myers-Briggs several times, and in Gallup we say that it's kind of like DISC and Myers-Briggs put you in the city. CliftonStrengths put you at the front door. So it is a more zoned in, specific set of things to you and to the people on your team. And Gallup also says that 70% of team engagement comes down to the manager. So if you're leading people, you need to know your things, but you also need to know their things in order to keep them happy and productive. The best feeling is when, I think you said earlier about significance, is you don't necessarily seek those things out, but when you get them and you do well, you want significance wants somebody to recognize that they did a good job. If I make a big change for the better, and significance for me plays out as a coach in my business, that I seek to help other business people grow. And that's why I got certified for CliftonStrengths, because it helps you understand it's your fingerprint, your unique set of things and how you interact with the world and how everybody interacts with you. So if you can say, to your potential client, this is why I'd be the best contractor for you, because I have, analytical, and I have focus, and I've eliminated all the problems that you have with other contractors, because I don't have that. I pride myself on being these things, and my team also, not just me, but this is what they do well. So developing yourself without having that understanding of yourself, it can be a lot more challenging in how you present yourself to your potential clients and grow your business. So I love that. So what's one piece of advice you'd give somebody to build a stronger network, whether it's in BNI or not?
you gotta, I mean, this might seem simple, but you just gotta do it. I mean, you have to make the connections. And as I was saying earlier, so many people, they come in, they like to kind of sit in the corner. They are slow about having their one to ones. They buddy up with maybe a tight power sphere and they don't explore outside of that. They stay within their own chapter. They don't explore other chapters. They're not a substitute or go and visit in a place where their seat might be open. So I would just recommend don't take the slow way. Uh, take the fast train, jump in, be involved. Uh, People will recognize you more when you do that. Come up with like a catchy slogan or catchphrase that your chapter can repeat during your 45 seconds. I know when I go through my 45 seconds, when it comes to the We Build Kitchens, Baths, and Home Additions, but what we specialize in is, and I have the whole chapter say a peaceful renovation experience, because that's what I want them to remember when they're talking with people, or when they hear, hey, I'm thinking about getting my bathroom remodeled, in the next 2 or 3 weeks. Oh, peaceful renovation experience. That's Nick. That's what I want them to think of. So
Yeah.
do something memorable. I know Cameron in Greater Memphis, he's the construction cowboy. So he comes up with like a Western themed 45 seconds to talk about, and people remember it and they love it. And so if you get up there and you're monotone and you have low energy and you say, well, I hold this seat and I do this and I do this.
Same thing every
Um,
week.
yeah, if anybody needs those things, call me. You're not going to be very memorable. People aren't going to be encouraged to send them to you because they're going to go, oh, this guy's such a bore. Like,
Right.
I don't know if I want to send this client over to him. Uh, that's what I would recommend.
That's awesome. Well, and that's a theme. Everybody I've asked that question of has said similar things. Is you just gotta do it, right? You have to force yourself. I went to a chamber event. They call it Perk Before Work here. We went to one the other day, and there were two people standing in the corner, and I knew one of them, and I went over to say hello to that person, and that person said to me, "Here we are, standing in the corner. I know you're going to say something about it." And I said, well, and that person had to leave. And I already, I know her, but the other one now is by herself, left with me. So I said, okay, who do you need to meet? And I took her and I made her go with me. And that stood out to her. She actually, that meant something to her that I sort of took her, I don't want to say under my wing, but I took the effort to introduce her around. But you have to be responsible for yourself sometimes, right? Is you have to, half the battle for her was getting in the room. And, the other half of the
Absolutely.
battle is make a friend, make just one person be your buddy. And then each week try that, right? Is if you can't bite the elephant all at once, take a nibble. The other thing that sprang up in my head when you said that was in my chapter, one of the initiatives we did for the second quarter was having everybody sit by their team. So the trades sit together, the B2Bs sit together, the insurance sits together, et cetera. And I move them around the room. So each week they come in and it's in a different spot and it's not next to the same person. I will rearrange because we have table tents with their names on them. And so I'll put visitors in the middle between each of them for several reasons. One, the repositioning is people get too comfortable in their seat, right? Is everybody sits in the same seat every week and that feels very comfortable. We sit at this table at this seat and we don't ever get out of that sort of shell. And I just heard something the other day about time goes faster as you get older because we do the same thing every day, every week. And so it seems faster because there's no derivation in what you're doing. So even if you drive to work a different way or come home a different way or try something different, like sit in a different seat, sit on the other side of the room, that will slow down your time on this earth because it's something different. But when we sit we like to sit people, we decided to sit people by power team because what if a visitor, and we put the visitors where they're supposed to on their team. So if a visitor comes in, everybody sitting right next to them is now part of their team and they see that. There's like, oh, there's 10 people on my team. Wow, this is pretty cool that
Right.
I could, do business with. So it creates the opportunity for them to want to become part of your chapter. All right. So what's left for you? What's not left for you, but what's next for you? What's the new exciting growth that you're looking forward to in the future?
Yeah. So in my business particularly, we've been trying to break the 2 million mark for a couple years now. So we grew very quickly within the first 3 years, and now we're kind of at this plateau. So we're trying to figure out what the next thing is that's going to plateau us up to that point. This year our focus is on customer service reviews, really making our experience fantastic for our clients. And I think that'll bring its way that way. BNI is going to be a big part of that. The business we've got from BNI each year continues to increase. And so, even as much as 25% of our yearly revenue.
Nice.
So we're going to continue to do BNI. That's one of the reasons why I became a chapter success coach, is just to have more visibility and credibility throughout the region. And it gives me the opportunity to sit in meetings, even if, I'm in a meeting where my seat is held. People know I'm there. They know what I'm doing. I might not be talking about it, but they know there's somebody else there if they ever need it. So.
Right. Yeah, and that definitely that scenario comes up. And as a coach, or you can be an ambassador, or you can be, whatever role gets you the opportunity to. You don't have to be in a role. You can just go visit other chapters where the seat is open. It expands your opportunities. We have 500, and I think it was 511 people in our general area. It was said this morning. So if there's 500 people that know who I am, chances are better that I'm going to get an opportunity because we actively try to help each other. So So that's all good stuff. Love that, and hope you break that next plateau. All right. Well, thanks
Thank
for
you.
being a guest here today, Nick, and thanks everybody for listening. And we'll see you next time on The Perfect 100. Thanks for listening to The Perfect 100. If today's episode sparked a new idea or inspired you to show up differently in your chapter, share it with your team. And be sure to subscribe so you never miss a conversation. And if you're curious about your own Clifton strengths and how to bring out the best in yourself or your chapter or your business, head to TammyZurak.com to learn more about building your superpowers into everything you do. Keep showing up, keep connecting, and keep building your perfect 100.